The Ben Johnson era in Chicago is not off to the best start. Chicago sitting at 0-2 on the season ahead of welcoming the Dallas Cowboys to town. And Ben Johnson, of course, speaking to the media ahead of the matchup, and he did mention that the team's performance is a reflection of him and the coaching staff. And he also had this to say about the Bears.
I think our practice habits are yet to reflect the championship caliber team.
All right, let's get the exec perspective, and for that, let's welcome in Amy Trask. And Amy, there was a separate quote from Ben Johnson, and the use of they versus our is a pretty big deal in terms of the context.
It is a big deal, and I was heartened for Bears fans when he changed his terminology and began using the word our, because when he initially commented on this, he was very, very critical of the team, its practice habits, level of effort. And he kept saying they need to show up at walkthroughs. They need to show up at the practice field. And my reaction was, they? Ben, you're the head coach. You've been the head coach through OTAs, mini camps, training camp, the pre-season. So first of all, if there's a problem, you're ultimately responsible for those issues. But you never, ever, ever say of your team when you are a leader that they need to show up at walkthroughs, they need to show up on the practice field, or they are not doing things well. It's we, Ben. When you're a team, it's we.
Starts at the top, right? That's about good leadership. All right, it is only week 3, Amy, and we're already having the hot seat conversations. It's already ramping up for the head coaches because that's just the day and age in which we live in the NFL. As someone who knows the logistics and what it takes and goes into firing a coach or getting a new head coach and what that all looks like, who are the coaches that are on your hot seat? Maybe we can start from like least hot and then end with the hottest seat.
Well, people have said Kevin Stefanski is on the hot seat, and my reaction to this has been his seat shouldn't be the only one that's hot in Cleveland. He's not singularly responsible for those issues. You're also showing Mike McDaniel. It was a far better showing last night than it had been initially in the season. And Brian Dable, there's a lot of issues there as well. So there are coaches on the proverbial hot seat. And Jacqueline, we do see coaching changes mid-season. I worked for a team owner who made coaching changes mid-season. And so I will say now that which I said to Al Davis throughout my career, whenever he was thinking of a coaching change, which is if you're going to make a coaching change, you have to first ask yourself and answer this question: and do what? Okay, you want to make a coaching change, and do what? What are you going to do instead if you make this coaching change? And if your answer to that question isn't at least as good as the status quo, if not better, then what are you doing? Why are you making a coaching change? And also, Jacqueline, let me give everybody a little tip. You don't need to make a coaching change with an overhead projector.
Okay, duly noted, Amy. Something else that has been in the headlines, I'm sure you are very aware, is the Tom Brady situation with him being in the booth for the Raiders while also being a broadcaster and covering some of these games. It's a very polarizing topic in the football world. But Amy, this is an organization that obviously you know very well. So who ultimately is making the call on whether or not to support Tom Brady in this dual role, or having to make those changes on the flip side with how he proceeds moving forward?
Well, of course, right. This topic has been kicked around a tremendous amount, and I won't dive into the substance of should he be doing this, should he be doing this. I'll focus instead on the issue you raised, which is how is this going to be handled within the Raider organization? And the answer is ultimately that Mark Davis has to make a decision as to whether he wants to continue to support and facilitate Tom in his dual role, and thus risk angering and potentially alienating the owners of other teams. Because I guarantee you that at league owners meetings, this will be mentioned, if not in the meeting itself, in the hallways, at the lunchroom, and otherwise. So Mark has to make that decision. But it's not just Mark. He is, as denominated by the NFL, the controlling owner of the team. Every team is required to have someone defined as a controlling owner. There's a certain requirement of that which the owner must own. Mark is that controlling owner. But while he is the controlling owner, there's someone behind the scenes who's extremely involved in the organization and decisions, and I believe will be involved in this discussion as well. And that is Jim Gray. Jim Gray orchestrated Tom's purchase of the limited partnership interest in the Raiders. And Jim Gray is tremendously involved in any number of areas within the organization. So to the extent that there's a discussion within the organization, I'm confident that Jim will be involved.
Amy, of course, we love all the behind the curtain, insight when there's these very nuanced situations that are happening, especially as it pertains to the Raiders, right? If we want to get to the Raiders and the on-the-field performance, so entering this week before Thursday Night Football, Geno Smith led the league solely in interceptions. So how concerning are those type of stats just about 3 weeks into the season?
Well, you are again, of course, right. Since the start of 2024, he has the most interceptions in the league. This year, he's started out with 4. 3 were in last week's game. And I have an answer to how to address this. It's 3 words. Run the ball. Now, look, many people are coming back to this running game and saying there's a resurgence in the running game. I have never, ever abandoned the importance of the running game. The running game is pivotal to an offense. You know what? It's one of a quarterback's very best friends. Run the ball. You drafted Ashton Jeanty with the number 6 overall pick in the draft. And you know what? To his credit, he has been extremely honest about something I heard from players throughout my career, which is that there's a tremendous adjustment to be made between the pace in college and the pace in the NFL. He's making that adjustment. He's aware he needs to make the adjustment. So give him the ball. It will help in 2 respects. It's going to take pressure off of Geno, and it's going to help Ashton to adjust more quickly. 3 words, run the ball.
And to your point, you drafted Ashton Jeanty as high as you did for a reason. Amy, I always find myself in these random conversations like, what quarterbacks in the NFL do you like to root on the most? Not for your team, but just at a glance. And over the years, Geno Smith is always in top 3, top 5 in those conversations. I love Geno, and I just love his story, and I hope that things kind of start to turn around for him there in Vegas.
Well, you know what? Then you and me, same, because I have always rooted for Geno's success. I, of course, do now that he's a Raider, but even going back to earlier in his career, I don't think he got a good shot initially, and I've been rooting for him since.
Yeah, we love the comeback stories in the NFL, don't we? Amy, we appreciate it giving us the executive perspective on a lot of major headlines that are happening around the National Football League. All right, want to remind you again, the NFL Today Throwback Show. It is Throwback Week, celebrating 50 years of the NFL Today. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you check it out Sunday, 12 Eastern, and you can stream it on Paramount Plus as well.